Headway in talks to try to resolve a cruise ship dispute. A Norman Chan warning on the outflow of funds. And not so diplomatic US remarks over Ukraine's political crisis.
Good evening. Progress has been reported in talks between disgruntled passengers and their travel agency in a dispute involving a cruise that skipped a stop in Vietnam. And the agency is trying to verify reports that a sunken barge at Ha Long Bay forced the cancellation of that part of the journey. Stephanie Choi has more.
Dozens of disgruntled passengers refused to leave the Costa Victoria until late last night, unhappy that their visit to Ha Long Bay in Vietnam was cancelled. The cruise company, Costa Cruises, informed passengers that a barge had sunk there, so their ship wouldn't be able to anchor safely. A letter was issued by Vietnamese travel agency on behalf of local port authorities. But when we called the travel agency today, staff said they were not aware of any incident involving a sunken barge. And staff from a local hotel we contacted were also not aware of that.
Have an accident in Ha Long Bay?
No accident.
No accident.
Miramar Travel, which helped the passengers book the cruise, says it will demand from the cruise company evidence of the incident and take action if it turned out to be untrue. In a meeting arranged by the Travel Industry Council this afternoon, Miramar Travel met with some of the disgruntled passengers, including lawmaker An Chiang, to discuss compensation. Before the meeting, a passenger representative said they were going to ask for compensation that's worth 1/3 the amount they paid for their trip. She also accused the management of Miramar Travel of being impersonal when handling the issue. Costa Cruises did not attend the meeting. It issued a statement this afternoon saying it deeply regrets the discomfort and disappointment felt by passengers who missed the Ha Long Bay port stop. It said the decision by Vietnamese authorities to close the port was beyond its control. Yesterday, a group of disgruntled passengers refused to leave the ship, delaying its departure.
If they think that they can actually claim, they have a reasonable claim against the company, they can do that any time after the incident. Okay, they don't have to sort of hijack the ship and block the ship and prevent the ship from departing the pier. I think the court will look into that if they have they can't come to settlement through mediation.
Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
The head of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority has warned of an outflow of funds and higher interest rates here in Hong Kong. Norman Chan also said today the future of the property market is unclear.
The government has been defending its tough property cooling policies, such as extra stamp duties. But critics complain those measures have only been able to curb the number of transactions, not prices. The head of the Monetary Authority said today the outlook for the property market is still uncertain.
Turnover has fallen significantly by 30-40% to the peak levels, but housing prices remain very sticky. There are very little adjustment in the last 12 months. A little bit of reduction in the luxury sector, but very little change in the mass market of small to medium-sized flats.
Chan said more time is needed to determine if the property market has indeed entered a downward cycle. He also warned of the outflow of funds from Hong Kong and local interest rates heading north because of tapering by the US Federal Reserve.
What we expect is that with the normalization of US interest rates, given the tapering program starting, eventually the huge amount of money that flew into Hong Kong in 2008-2009 will flow out. That would give upward pressure to liquidity and also interest rates locally.
Facing lawmakers in the LegCo Financial Affairs panel today, Chan also said mortgage growth last year stood at a low 3.9% compared with 2012. But he pointed out that overall credit growth has been too fast, reaching 16%. Chan expressed concern about an increase in personal lending, including tax and credit card loans. Latest figures showed it totaled $370 billion, which is about 16% of Hong Kong's GDP. That's higher than 9.9% in 2000 and 6.4% in 1990. He said the Monetary Authority has alerted banks to exert more control in personal loan risk management.
The Steering Committee on Population Policy is expected to come up with policies later this year. The committee has received about 800 submissions in its public consultation exercise. And as Rani Samtani reports, concerns have been raised about issues such as the import of foreign labor and the one-way permit system involving mainlanders.
With the public consultation ending later this month, the Steering Committee on Population Policy expects to formulate measures by the end of the year. Carrie Lam, who also heads the committee, attended a LegCo House Committee meeting this afternoon and updated lawmakers on the public consultation.
We have embarked on an extensive promotion effort. We have attended various forums. We visited the 18 district councils. We also held a number of focus groups meetings to collect views from stakeholders and experts. We have so far received 800 submissions.
But lawmakers criticized the consultation document, saying it only focuses on economic development. Some cited the controversy involving the one-way permit scheme.
The government attaches a lot of importance to economic integration, but not social integration.
In response, Lam said the government will be boosting services for new migrants. Lawmakers also expressed concerns about foreign labor.
In Asia, among other Asian places, Hong Kong has higher wages and the conditions of service. Still, there have been much difficulties in recruiting staff, in some trades in particular, on importation of labor. The labor sector, labor unions have expressed strong opposition to that.
Secretary for Labor and Welfare Matthew Jung noted a manpower shortage, especially in construction and home care services. He said the Labor Advisory Board will conduct a study on whether there is a need to import labor. Because they ran out of time, House Committee Chairman Andrew Leung said Carrie Lam may be called back to give more lawmakers the chance to raise their concerns about population policies. Meanwhile, the population policy public consultation will end on February 23rd. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
The U.S. Senate has confirmed Senator Max Baucus as Washington's next ambassador to China. Senators on Capitol Hill voted overwhelmingly to give final approval to the nomination of the Democrat from the state of Montana. U.S. President Barack Obama earlier named him for the top diplomatic post in China to replace Gary Locke, the incumbent ambassador. Locke will step down from his position earlier this year. Chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, Baucus spent the last 35 years in the Senate working on issues ranging from taxes to health care reform. He was a supporter of China's entry into the World Trade Organization and is seen as someone who understands the deep and complex trade relations between Beijing and Washington.
Final preparations are said to be going smoothly in the countdown to the official start of the Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. With the Games already underway, organizers are hoping to turn the spotlight away from controversies to competitions. James Aitken reports.
Just hours before a very secret but massively anticipated opening ceremony, Russia is almost ready to host one of the most exciting events on the planet. And Olympic organizers are, well, excited.
It's exciting, and I'm really longing for the second when the Olympic flame shines over the Olympic Stadium. And I'm sure so do the athletes, and I'm sure it will be an exciting show.
But security remains the #1 concern, and in Sochi there is a lot of it. The White House says there has been an uptick in the threat level. The latest intelligence alerts center on toothpaste. Airlines and airport screeners have been warned that terrorists may try to smuggle explosives into Sochi in toothpaste tubes. Meanwhile, protests directed at the Russian government continue both inside and outside of Russia. More than 20 people were arrested in central Moscow after they demanded the release of political activists from prison. Demonstrators at this Russian consulate in New York targeted their wrath at Russia's gay propaganda law, restricting gay rights activities.
It's now or never time. Today's the first day of the Olympics. We're here to tell Vladimir Putin that you can't hide a pogrom behind the sports page.
President Xi Jinping will be among the dignitaries attending the opening ceremony. He's mixed business with pleasure as he met his Russian counterpart for talks on China-Russia ties. While workers scramble to finish facilities that have been criticized for everything from spying to plumbing, at least one former Olympian is convinced Sochi is ready.
I think it's fantastic facilities, it's great condition. It's really exciting moment that games will start tonight.
Olympic organizers are hoping that once the opening ceremony is out of the way, there will be less talk about security, human rights, and corruption, and more talk about medal counts. James Aiken, TVB News.
A phone conversation between two senior U.S. diplomats, which was apparently bugged and then posted online, has become a source of embarrassment for the United States. The pair discussed Ukraine's political crisis and expressed frustration at the European Union in a frank and not-so-diplomatic manner. Tony Sabine reports.
Who would have thought a supposed private and secure conversation between two senior U.S. diplomats would cause such a stir? But that's exactly what's happened after a phone call, apparently between America's top diplomat for Europe, Victoria Nuland, and Washington's ambassador to Ukraine, was leaked online. In it, Nuland and Jeffrey Pyatt discussed what Ukraine's government might look like if opponents of President Viktor Yanukovych were to play a greater role. But the explosive part comes when the Assistant U.S. Secretary of State used a swear word to express her exasperation with the European Union over its handling of the Ukrainian crisis. Washington had been calling for sanctions against Kiev, something the EU appears to be dragging its foot over. Nuland, who's in Ukraine meeting the opposition, as well as Yanukovych, was forced to apologize to her EU counterparts for the outburst. The US State Department stopped short of directly accusing Russia of bugging the phone call, but pointed out it was a Russian official who first leaked it on YouTube and Twitter.
Well, certainly we think this is a new low in Russian tradecraft in terms of publicizing, posting. I don't have any other independent details about the origin of the YouTube video.
How the Russians allegedly got hold of this conversation is the subject of obvious conjecture and speculation. But the intent seems to be to throw a spanner in the works between the EU, the United States and the Ukrainian opposition. It's no secret that Moscow is unhappy with what it believes to be obvious EU and US meddling in Ukraine, a country which Russia sees as its sphere of influence, not the West's. And the US can't take issue with suspected Russian snooping, given Edward Snowden's revelations last year, which exposed Washington as listening in to the phone conversations of its allies and enemies. Tony Sabine, TVB News.
And when we come back, bomb scare over in Happy Valley. Action from the Sochi Olympics. And Jay Leno's swan song.